very excited to talk to you today. I'm excited because this film is very fun, and more importantly, it's got a great cast. And I have to say, it seemed like there was a lot of cool moments in this making of this film. I mean, most of it takes place at night, which I've always enjoyed night shoots and that feeling of like we're creating something under the cloak of darkness. I mean, did you kind of feel that way when you were kind of making this film?
Oh, especially in like downtown LA, because it's downtown LA at night is a ghost town. And it always has been. And we shot this, sort of pre-pandemic, but it was still a ghost town then. And so yeah, it was definitely it added to the vibe of the gig. And I think it was kind of interesting that Brian A. Metcalf decided to give Ethan this insomnia so that he could be experiencing and sort of unearthing this part of LA that anyone who has a normal job and a normal life wouldn't ever really see.
Now, before we start to kind of dig down into the characters themselves, do you know how this casting process came together? We have some. I mean, we have Mickey, we have Penelope, we have so many great people in this. Do you know where the order was? Like, where were you? Were you came on first, or how the order of all this come together with this cast?
So the three producers on this project are Brian A. Metcalf, Kelly Arjun, and myself. So when Brian first wrote the script, because he's obviously also the writer director, I read the script and I was completely drawn to playing Ethan. Brian and I have worked on some films before together, but even he was slightly unsure that I was going to be able to pull off the role the way that he had envisioned. So we did a bunch of work sessions and really developed the character together to change the way that I looked and that I spoke and the way that I moved. And then once he felt comfortable that I was going to be able to pull off this role, we started on the rehearsal process with Kelly Arjun, who plays Mia. As far as the order of the rest of the cast, I don't really remember the exact order. I know that we had some pretty lofty ideas, and I'm really happy with the cast that we were able to get.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Mickey Rourke, Lou Diamond Phillips, Sean Astin, Matt Ryan. I mean, there's so many great people in this together who all kind of give their own kind of piece of the underbelly of everything too. So, to get this going, how did you first explain this story when a friend asked you how about this story before there was a visual, before there was a cast, even probably? How did you first explain what adverse was?
Well, Brian and I mean, I think it's kind of been weirdly coined into a thriller or even a revenge film, but at the heart of the story, that's not really what it's about at all. Brian and I really wanted to make a character-driven drama that aired on suspense more than anything else, that had a lot of tension, similar to Taxi Driver or You Were Never Really Here or Drive. And then only when he decided to add sort of this payoff at the ending sequence did he draw from things like Old Boy, which he specifically showed the cinematographer shots from Old Boy so that we could get that sort of final awesome one steady cam shot near the end of the film where Ethan, more or less unleashes his anger issues with his tire iron.
Well, and there's definitely flavors of all those things. The flavor of You Were Never Really Here. I tasted that as well as Old Boy too. So I see those things in the character development as well as following the character and trying to kind of peel back to show anguish and the pain of one more step. And I think that was something that was very apparent as you were moving through this as well. Um, can you talk about Ethan himself, this character, and I guess creating someone who has all these connections, but is also someone who is flawed in his own way too, because of well, he's made mistakes, and he has a lot of people in his life who he has connections to because of those mistakes.
Yeah, Ethan is definitely a flawed character. He has a questionable past. One of the things that kind of got cut from the script a little bit is Lou Diamond Phillips as his quote unquote parole officer. Mentions him like I think he says something about like breaking and entering or breaking into homes. So that is the history of Ethan, that he, has broken into some homes, and he apparently has a skill set of being able to pick locks. Again, we don't really see that because it kind of slowed down the story to like watch Ethan, pull out his lock picking set, and he's not cracking any safes. So it that detail got kind of cut. But he has a very tragic upbringing that we learn about during the story through some flashback scenes with Penelope Ann Miller playing my mom. Since she's not old enough to be my mom, she can only be my mom if I'm playing younger. And so we learn about the tragedies of that while the story unfolds, and you see the basis of what's kind of wrong with Ethan, and why he has the mental illness or suffers from the mental illness that he does.
And that's something that we definitely kind of delve into as well, because as much as he wants to fix himself, he's also surrounded by people who are also broken. And it's always interesting to see how, and even mostly in real life too, you see a lot of people who are broken, who are grabbing onto other broken people, like they can fix them or we can fix each other. And that's always something that's very real to life, and also kind of disheartening at the same time, is two people who are drowning trying to save each other at the same time. And so that's all, that was something I was kind of interested in as well. um
Yeah,
uh, talk,
there isn't one person in here that isn't like completely messed up. Everyone has an underbelly to their character. Every single character, or they are the underbelly themselves.
100%. Now I have to ask about being alone in a car with this gentleman in between shots, in between when cameras and blocking and things are happening. Like, what's the conversation? I mean, are you talking about an English breakfast? Like, what is happening in that car where you're just like, well, let's see what Mickey says. Like, I would just be there waiting, like the quietness, waiting to see what comes out, because that's the goal. I met him many times. He's an amazing man, and so I would love to. I just want to know, like, what's the words that are come out of his mouth.
There were a lot of great stories that Mickey told during the course of filming, and of course, it sort of unearthed itself as it progressed, because when we initially sort of had Mickey on set, he was very focused, and I only really saw him on set when he was like closer to being in character, and then as he grew more comfortable in the performance, which, I mean, he's an intense and amazing actor, then we would start to hear like these awesome, stories with De Niro, or Robert Downey Jr., or on the set of Wrestler, or, you know, like how he accidentally shot his girlfriend, or, like all these amazing stories. And probably my favorite one was we were kind of jumping around town with a skeleton crew, hitting different parts of LA for some driving shots. And so we all got hungry at one point, and so we ended up like at Cantor's Deli on La Brea in Hollywood. So here we are. It's essentially like Mickey Rourke holding court with his 12 disciples, because there's a skeleton crew, but then it's just like the Mickey show, and it's like what story is Mickey gonna tell next?
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a bunch out there. I mean, he's one of them. I remember, I want to say it was 20 years ago at Sundance, and he came in and talked about a film, and he's there sitting like Brando with a dog on his arm, just petting the dog slowly, like he's an evil villain, waiting to kind of unleash the next thing too. And it was just a bigger than life moment where you feel like someone could come in, like he could come in with a bowl of cereal and be like, what's going to happen with the cereal? What's he going to do? Like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, that's the epitome of who he is. And I think what he delivers, especially on screen too. Can you talk a little bit about his character too, Caden, right?
Yeah, Caden is the we come to find out through the course of the film that he's the main crime boss, and there's a happenstance. I don't want to give too much away, but a happenstance meeting, and then later, and there's some log lines out there that kind of delve into this anyway. Later, my character ends up, driving for him. Obviously, that's on the poster, so you kind of figure that out. And his character is flawed. He's sort of you know, a reluctant antagonist. Kind of he's not like all about what he's doing, though he does what he does well. And then we come to find out that he also has some, I don't know, is it too much to talk about his physical nature? I mean, we see that he's holding a cane. I can say that he fooled a lot of people,
Yeah.
with how he moves that character. I mean, I was aiming to do the things that I saw Mickey do just innately. Every part of his being is in character, to the point that, and specifically in regard to the cane,
Right.
uh, early on, my wife saw a clip of something, or like a scene, or something, and she saw him walking with the cane, and she said, "Oh, how was that working with him?" And then later, I saw a review that came out that said, "Oh, it must have been tough, with Mickey's apparent, faltering physical health."
Right.
And let me be clear here. The man has a six pack, and he brings his workout gear to the set and works out in between camera setups.
I was
There
questioning
is
it too.
no
I was questioning it without a doubt. I have to be
there
honest.
is there is no part of him with a cane that isn't acting. This is the amazing part of Mickey Rourke, and how believable. He fooled me sometimes. You talked about being in the car. Sometimes, how, like, if you've ever gotten into a car with someone that does have those physical issues, the way they sort of fall into the seat of a car when they're getting in, because you kind of have to, like, duck into a car, right? So if you're not physically capable, the way that you sort of fall in, there's sort of this moment where it's almost like you're jumping into the car. In any case, there would be so many times where I'd be at the driver's seat, and the way he would get into the car, I would think to myself, "Oh man, is he getting tired? Like, is everything okay?" And then I have to remind myself, "No, we're talking about the dude who has a six pack that's like lifting weights in between camera setups. He's acting." I had to remind myself, and I was there.
Well, he got me. I mean, essentially, right now in my mind, he's Willy Wonka taking the tumble. Like we didn't expect it. We didn't know what was gonna happen. He was just the old guy who was walking, then bam, somersault, and you're like, oh, okay, what's happening here? What's happening? So that's something that very much surprised me because that was definitely in my mind, and I didn't even know how to ask the question. I was trying to figure out how do I ask the question of like how was he, whatever else, but knowing that after that he just somersaulted away and then went to go lift a bunch of weight that I can't lift too, like that makes me feel a lot better, and also I'm very starstruck at that idea as well too. So crazy.
Yeah, it's so he got you too.
He very much did
A,
give me
a point
100%.
a point
I
in
was feeling
case.
bad. I was feeling bad for him. I was feeling bad for the production, thinking, well, they probably had to do a bunch of shots because things are going wrong, and he might have had to his. Damn you, Mickey
No.
Rourke. Damn you. You got me.
I mean, a point in case is the ending sequence when he's chasing us through the building.
Yeah.
See, and then at that point, you're so involved in the story, it doesn't even dawn on you. Wait, I've just watched this guy for an entire film use a cane, and now he's running and gunning,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah, no, there was definitely some things in there that maybe question it. So he definitely pulled it off 100%. And anyone who watches this film just for that alone is gonna be like, wow, they're gonna pinch themselves because he got them so easily too. And then everyone else in this was great. Lou Diamond was great. Penelope was great. Matt, who I love as well. I've always seen, we've seen the darker side of him with Constantine, but I know there's like many more layers to being an Englishman. I mean,
Well,
I mean,
technically,
evil.
he is a Welshman, not an
Welsh, sorry,
Englishman.
Welsh. I mean, Welsh, but also evil is what I meant to say. Like, there's more levels of evil within him. Constantine has like a certain level of like darkness to him, but he's still a good bloke at the end, But I feel like Matt Ryan has some levels. I actually partied with him once at a Comic-Con party years back, but I felt in his acting that there's always that deeper level, and I think we did kind of see that in this film too. So I was very
Yeah,
happy to see it.
when we were lucky enough to get Matt Ryan, Brian actually helped flush out the character, and the sequence didn't have Ethan picking him up at home and where we see his family, which obviously, if you may or may not know this, his son in the movie is my son, Nolan River, who is going to be in M. Night's movie Old that's hitting theaters July 23rd with Universal. The trailer, I think, played during the Super Bowl. So that's my kid. And there was actually a great moment in there where Nolan comes out to the door to answer it, and so he like says hi to me and has to pretend that I'm a stranger, picking up his dad who he's only just met. So it was a great moment. It unfortunately didn't land in the cut because it slowed down that sequence. And my point before I went off on a tangent is that um, that sequence wasn't in there. There was, us going to do that job, but me picking him up at home and showing that he had a family to show this dichotomous nature of Matt Ryan's character was something that Brian flushed out when we were lucky enough to get Matt. And that's one of my favorite moments in the film. Right after I have the scene with my son, is we go into the car and Matt and I have that like really tense sort of argument where you're not really sure what's going to happen. Kind of like you're saying, Mickey could have a dog on his lap or a bowl of cereal.
Right.
There's the tension in that scene is my favorite moment in the movie when he's poking his finger at me and I grab his hand and then we kind of have this like momentary showdown and then we go do the gig.
For sure. And that's one of the things too that was very interesting about the characters, because they all enter, like as they enter your car, they enter your world. I mean, that's kind of the thing, they enter the car and you're like, this place where I'm supposed to be safe or I'm making money or trying to survive. And then these people just kind of walk into your life too. So what was it about playing a character like that where every new person was just a door open away, I guess?
Yeah, I mean that was cool. I especially loved the opportunity. I've worked with Andrew Keegan before, but I love the opportunity of working with Luke Edwards. He was phenomenal as when I talked about the layers of the character, about his only endearing quality is his character's stutter. Other than that, there's nothing really endearing about those two guys.
That's amazing. Well, you know what? I have to say I'm a fan of many of your films, but the one that I can remember as being a huge part of it and being something that was in my mind too, because I was never a sports person, but I was always hoping that one day I could get in an accident to be a sports person. So Rookie of the Year is really where I mean, as a kid, back in those days, we had like maybe 5 VHS tapes as kids, and that was one of mine. So that one was playing many, many a time too. So if I can ask, '93, what do you still remember? Like, what still makes you smile about being in that film, or even just off camera? Do you still have something that still kind of makes you smile about that project?
Oh, I mean, I have tons of fond memories of that film. It's endless. I'm still in touch with Danny Stern. His son is a senator here in California, and in fact, there was even when we were getting ready to go and shoot Old with M. Night, um, I had to get my son a passport because we are shooting in the Dominican. It's during COVID, and they don't have expedited passports. So I actually ended up getting some help from Danny and from Danny's son Henry Stern in order to figure out how to get the passport for Nolan and not miss the opportunity for him to do this film. So Danny is just, he's always been a great guy. So many fond memories of just being in Chicago and being on Wrigley Field. I had it in my mind for a minute that maybe there would be an opportunity, and there's still possibility now. There's a new possibility, actually. I had it in my mind that Nolan, if he continues following in my footsteps, could potentially play Henry's son in some sort of like long awaited sequel. I pitched that idea to one of the producers who kind of ran with it without me and was going to do a reboot at Fox. But then last laughs on him, Disney bought Fox. So now maybe there's still a chance. Disney could make a different maneuver than Fox did, and not do a reboot with a different sports team,
Right.
with a different team on the MLB, but a long awaited sequel. Who knows?
For sure, for sure. Well, it's those are the kind of movies that stick with you as you grow up too, because I can't pick up a tube of icy hot without thinking about, will you heat up the ice? Like, I mean, that's still in my mind constantly. I talked about it like literally with someone else recently too. They're like, "You need some icy hot." Well, like, I'm like, "Well, all you gotta do is just get the ice and you heat it up. If we don't have a tube of icy hot, just heat up the ice and put that on." And so I have to
It's the
kind of
best of both
explain.
worlds.
Yeah, I had to explain it to best of both worlds. Yeah, I love. I still remember that very vividly. One of those things too. Um,
I
you know,
I remember that scene specifically because Danny had these sunflower seeds that he was like, popping in his mouth, right? And obviously sunflower seeds for shooting takes over and over again, they're very salty and dry. So he had them like kind of like they would pre-wet them, not with like someone else, with just water. So he had like this handful of them, and he's doing that whole thing where he's like popping them in his mouth while he's doing that scene, and then he's like and starts choking on it, and you could actually, even in the final clip, see me start to break, and then they cut away from me. It was near impossible to keep a straight face in all my scenes with him.
one thing I do enjoy too is, what was it like kind of coming into all those TV projects right there in the 90s too? Because, they're adding the child into the show and they're trying to create, what was it? Harry and the Hendersons, and then the Tony Danza had a thing too for a while. And like, there was a bunch of other ones that were out there too, right? And you kind of came into some of those shows, or they were trying to pilot those shows too. So what was it like trying for them to try to fit you into those, but also you hoping to find, I guess, a TV family at those times too?
Yeah, it's funny. One of my first jobs was on Who's the Boss with Tony Danza. I played a young Tony, and then on the Tony Danza show, I played his girlfriend's boyfriend. So it was funny to work with Tony twice so many years later. What, 86 and 96, I believe.
Yep.
And then I recently actually just ran into him at a Comic-Con event in Philadelphia. Um, but in any case, the TV stuff, one of the funniest ones I think was doing a 9-episode arc on Party of Five during its 5th season, where uh, they wanted, Claudia, played by Lacey Chabert, was all, grown up, so they wanted her to have her, sort of relationship moment. Um, so they brought in me, the counter violinist, and there was even a moment in the last few years that I almost delved back into TV, and there could potentially be a possibility as we sort of navigate through this sort of COVID guidelines of feature films. So, for instance, Adverse came out in theaters on February 12th, and it was a 1 week, select theaters platform release. The majority of theaters actually ordered it for a second week, which was pretty impressive considering that, it's still pandemic time. And then I think we just got like an order for a couple of theaters that are still keeping it in. But we're thinking about getting back into the TV space until we kind of come out to the other side of, people being able to go back to life
Right.
as we once knew it.
Right. One thing I did want to kind of chat about too was, what was it like, when you play a character, there's so many out there. Like if you played Hamlet, you think about all the Hamlets that came before you and the Hamlets that came after you and things like that. But what was it, thinking about the fact of, less than a decade ago or somewhere on there, you played Abby Hoffman, but Sasha played him recently. I mean, you had Chicago 8, I believe, was yours, and this is Chicago 7. Of course, there's the the Aaron Sorkin treatment in between as well. But what was your thought when you heard, first of all, heard that they were making this in a different fashion with different, of course, but also that Sasha was going to be playing a part that you kind of looked into as well, a person you delved into.
Well, I think Sasha is first of all amazingly talented. He's a chameleon in and of himself, especially in his comedic roles. But they're smart comedic roles. It's comedy with a purpose. All of his Borat and Ali G, characters that we've seen over the years. And so yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool to say that Sacha Baron Cohen and I have played the same role. Ours was a very very small independent movie that probably barely saw the light of day, versus his was with an all star cast and Aaron Sorkin, and so
A lot of
rightly
Netflix
so.
money. Yeah.
Yeah, rightly so. He's nominated for a lot of awards because he's amazing. He you know Abby Hoffman is a very very interesting character, and I got so delved into the research during that time period that the rest of the cast called me the human encyclopedia. So I know, like, a lot of times the director would say something like, and this is kind of the shortcomings of where I couldn't just focus on my role, I was focused on the whole. And this is sort of my producing hat. The director would say, "Oh, go ahead and do some ad libs here. I'm just going to cut over to you." And everyone would kind of look like, there's, eight of us. What are we all going to do? I mean, Orlando Jones could just be Bobby Seale over in his own separate world,
Right.
henceforth the Chicago 8 versus the 7. But the rest of us were like, what's everyone going to say? So I'd be like, all right, guys, I downloaded these court transcripts. They have all this dialogue that was said. It doesn't say who's saying what because the stenographer couldn't tell, but why don't we just pick out lines that were, there? So the director's like, go ahead and ad lib. I'm like, no, no, no. Here's the court transcripts. Pick the line that fits with your character, and that's what you'll say.
And that's interesting too because it's history, but it's also real people out there. I think Abby Hoffman's son actually lives in Las Vegas, so he's a Facebook friend of mine, and he was very very happy about I guess Sasha's I guess portrayal of him, as far as I know. Or maybe he was just happy to have the light of day put on his dad and all the things that he did as well, So I was very interested because I enjoy the icons of history, but more importantly, I enjoy showing that regular people are the ones who make history, and that's really important to me, because when you make it too high in the mountain and out of reach, people don't try to reach for themselves. So I was very, very, I'm very happy about that. Well, I'm very excited to talk to you about all this stuff, and I was very excited I'm very excited for people to talk to watch this film as well. Lots of great stuff. Mickey Rourke, as well as delivering some great acting. The rest of the cast just jumping in and giving their all too. So I want to thank you very much for talking with me today, and we look forward to talking with you on your next project or whatever else you're working on. And good luck with your son, and I guess molding him into a younger you for Rookie of the Year, and maybe his own version of whatever he wants to be for whatever else I guess Hollywood might throw his way.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's really just about giving him the opportunity to choose what he wants to do. Because I really, at the end of the day, I just want him to pick something that he enjoys, so that life is, so that when you have the challenges of achieving what you want, at least you can enjoy what you're working toward.
Right.
Because it's nothing's easy. So as long as we love what we're doing, the challenges and the not easy part is acceptable because we're getting to do what we love.
For sure. Well, we do have to point kids a little bit though, or else all the children in America would just be professional Fortnite players at this point. So
It's funny you say that. My son actually has it in his mind that he'd like to be a video game designer.
so that's an
And,
option too. At least he said designer. not the next Pootie Pie or something like that.
You know,
That's
he says that, but I don't necessarily know that at 9 he really understands how boring coding is.
right, right. I just
But
want to throw.
maybe I'll get him in some coding classes. If he can type like, coding really fast, he'll be amazing.
For sure, or the graphic side too. Either way, it works too. So, well, we look forward to that and all those things to come. But more importantly, we hope that everyone in your life is happy and healthy as well, and that you are moving forward in this time of chaos. That you can kind of find your own way to kind of create your own schedule and future.
Yes, the schedule is just trying to figure out how to survive to the other side.
Very
And
much
I think
so.
we're all starting to feel that burn. I was talking with Brian A. Metcalf. He goes, "You remember last year we had just gone to Portugal to premiere Adverse at Fantas Porto, and then you went off to the UK, and we came back and was locked down." He's like, "And you thought it was just going to be a couple of weeks, and now here we are, almost a year later." Although things are starting to change. We just got invited to be the opening night film. It's our 4th festival that will open at Ramsgate in the UK. And there's talk about us maybe going there in June. And
Rad.
I'm kind of like, granted, I know like during this time I went to the Dominican with my son to film, but we were living in a bubble there too. But I'm just like thinking like, could it really be? Could I travel somewhere out of the country in June? Is this real?
Well,
Who
and
knows?
that's the thing too. It's as real as we can make it, and I guess as safe as we are, we just have to kind of make those little choices along the way too. I know a lot of productions and people who were sequestered even during the worst of times. 2 weeks at a time just to be able to do something. I have a friend in Vancouver sequestered right now before they can shoot. On a CW show, so like it's just part of the world. Like we take the rules. The key is though to just to say whatever comes, we're gonna keep on doing what we're doing. So
No doubt. Well, if you're not delving out into the world yet, Adverse will hit streaming on March 9th wherever Lionsgate puts their movies.
very, very cool. All right, sir. Thank you very much for talking with us today, and have an amazing week.